At the end of your life, what will be your legacy? What will you leave behind for future generations? For the world, join the World Messenger, Izabela Lundberg, each week as she brings you a new distinguished guest from the business, sports, or entertainment world to share their success, their struggles, and their lessons. They will share their insights into current hot topics that affect everyone. Izabela facilitates an intimate, vulnerable environment to find the true value of humanity and real leadership. Are you ready for your legacy? The legacy that matters?
If you had a chance to have a conversation and ask the question from our chief of FBI's crisis negotiation unit, what would you ask? Specifically, as we're facing so many uncertainties and opportunities to really revisit, what can we do better now that we know more? Hello, everyone. It's Izabela Lundberg here, the legacy leader host here, and I cannot wait to introduce you to today's guest. I have a chance and opportunity to bring Gary Noesner to the Legacy Leader Show again to share his tremendous perspective over 40 plus years of experience and crisis management, leadership, communications, negotiations, and so much more. Someone who not only has tremendous acumen, obviously, on national safety and security, international as well, but also has a keen sense of how human nature and behavior works. Without further ado, let me introduce you to Gary. Hi, Gary, how are you?
Hi, Izabela. It's a pleasure to be with you again.
Likewise, Gary, thank you so much for finding time right now as we're seeing how everything is rapidly developing nationally and internationally. It's a great opportunity to really give some nice point of view from your wisdom and your perspective and your expertise. For everybody that did not have a chance yet to know so much about you, as some listeners and other leaders that are being exposed to your wisdom, do you mind just giving us a little quick overview about your career and experience, and also how do you became that amazing chief of the FBI Crisis Negotiation Unit?
Well, I joined the FBI in 1972. I had a 30-year career in the FBI. In the last 23 years, I was, in addition to being an investigator, I was a negotiator. And then the last 10 years of my career, I was the chief negotiator for the FBI. So, in that capacity, my unit responded to all manner of crisis events, bank robbery, hostage situations, prison riots, right-wing militia standoffs, religious zealot sieges. I flew to Peru when the Japanese ambassador's residence was taken over by terrorists. I worked a number of Middle East hijacking cases and worked over 120 kidnappings of American citizens abroad. So through those experiences, I have an opportunity to learn a lot, as you say, about communication and human interaction and some of the challenges we all face to either avoid conflict or resolve it quickly when it erupts. So that's the perspective I bring it. I wrote a book, Stalling for Time, that came out in 2010, and have been involved in several TV productions based on my book, such as the Netflix Waco event and the Paramount miniseries about Waco, and a few others.
Wow, such a tremendous, again, knowledge and experience, but also ways to learn from those challenging incidents that you mentioned that prompted not only to write a phenomenal book, but everybody will definitely share the link and take advantage of it, because it's a great learning tool. But in addition to that, we have tremendous opportunity where we can see where things are headed in terms of how some of these incidents in the past, like Waco and others, Middle East hijacking, shaped your approach in crisis negotiation?
Yeah, the big shift I think that I was a key player in was moving the negotiation field within law enforcement to a sort of a crisis intervention model. In the FBI, we determined that a majority of situations police officers face, not only in the United States but worldwide, were actually events involving human conflict and crisis. People engaged in disruptive, self-destructive activities, threatening activities with no clear purpose in mind, often simply demonstrating their being upset at the complexities of life that they may not be well equipped to handle, not understanding how to deal with conflict in a peaceful way. So the lessons we learned from that, I think, do indeed have broad applicability. How we engage with people. And as I always tell classes, when we were able to get people to surrender, we would ask them, what did we say? Because we wanted to learn and memorialize that approach so we could use it again. And the answer was very profound. The answer was always the same. And it was, I don't remember what you said, but I like the way you said it. And that really speaks loud and clear to the reality that how we are perceived by others, how we come across as being genuine and respectful to them, how we are open to understanding what they're dealing with and how they feel about it, how it's impacting them. That demonstration allows us to create a relationship that ultimately leads us to a position where we can influence behavior, help people turn away from violence, help people become more cooperative, to work better as a team, to resolve lingering issues in a workplace or elsewhere. So that's kind of the approach. In law enforcement, television always makes it look like it's good cop, bad cop, and come on out or we're going to come in and kill you and all sorts of things. But in reality, good negotiators are really good listeners and good communicators. And you've got a very frequent situation where whoever we're dealing with has a very poor relationship in the past with police, doesn't trust them. And instead of getting an authoritative, demanding individual, you get somebody named Bob or Mary or somebody that says, "Hey, I want to help you. I'm here to see if we can't do what is needed to get you to put that gun down and come on out. I don't want to see you get hurt. I don't want to see this short-term crisis turn into a long-term negative solution." So those are just some of the basic approaches, and it applies more broadly. It applies in everyday life. Every Thanksgiving, I seem to get calls from some magazines that want to ask me sort of the same question: how do you handle angry old Uncle Charlie at the Thanksgiving dinner? Because we all have one of those, and someone that's very passionate about their political beliefs and very angry and very expressive about that. And then I just come up with some suggestions that, let's say you were a family member, you would say, "Uncle Charlie, I can tell you're very passionate about this and you have very strong beliefs, but Mom worked all day preparing this incredible meal for us. And, this is a special family time where we should really devote our time and energy to positive things about looking back at our childhood and growing up together. And, let's leave that aside for now and we can save that for another day. This is probably not the appropriate place. Not everybody may agree or hold the same opinions you do, but that's okay. It doesn't mean you're right or wrong. It's just this is not the time and place." Now, that approach doesn't guarantee success, but if you are going to be successful, it's probably because you've taken that kind of approach instead of saying, "Uncle Charlie, would you please shut up and keep your opinions to yourself? Nobody gives a damn what you think about this issue or that issue." That's the wrong approach. That's antagonizing, it's criticizing, and it's likely to evoke just the opposite response than what you want.
I love that. And right now we can see millions of examples of Uncle Charlie. And some of us obviously see that in workforce and working environment. Some of us see obviously that in the media across the board on so many issues, but then also we see things in political arena. But do you mind, just because again, we're here on the Legacy Leader Show where leaders and executives are paying attention, wanted to adjust what they're doing. Where do you see some biggest opportunities for them? Because as we know, everything kind of starts with that leadership mindset, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think, and this happened to me as a leader in the FBI. people want a piece of your time, people that work for you, and they, are not reluctant to bring problems or issues or concerns for you. And because many business leaders are trying to manage their time, um, they too quickly reach a conclusion or provide an answer, when in reality, the person presenting the problem may not really expect a clear decision, but what they do want is to be heard and listened to and appreciated. I think a good analogy is, the complaints you hear about doctors. A person goes to see their doctor, and this particular doctor, just like he's looking at his watch, I've got to see X number of customers. You've been in this waiting room forever. You've been waiting. The doctor finally comes in and he spends 2 minutes with you and off he goes. Or the doctor that sits down and says, well, what's going on? How are you feeling? Are there any new issues that you are concerned about, you want to share with me? In other words, a bedside manner, a more caring, empathic approach that I think leads to a better, enduring relationship between doctor and patient. I think managers have to be like that a bit, where we take the time to put our phone on hold, come out from behind our desk and sit down with our employee, our subordinate, our coworker, whatever it might be. And it says, it sounds like there's something that is really important that you want to talk about. Let's talk about it. And if you've done something wrong that you are unaware of and you can fix it, then move in that direction. It could be a misunderstanding, and then you can explore that. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? And then we use active listening skills. We paraphrase back to the person in our words what we think they've told us. Because instead of saying, I hear you, a more effective approach is to show and prove that you're hearing them. And you do that by feeding back what they've said to you and how they feel about it. Izabela, it sounds like you were very upset that you were overlooked for this promotion in the department. You felt as though you had the best resume and that you should have been given more consideration. And because of that, you feel like you're not valued in the company. Is that, am I understanding you correctly? And if I have stated that in an accurate way, then you are more satisfied that, okay, I don't have to yell and scream and raise my voice. My boss is hearing me. He understands why I'm here. He's understanding how what happened is impacting me in a negative way, and it's very concerning to me. And it gives you an opportunity then to move towards problem solving and a collegial finding of a solution to whatever the issue may be. And it may be that a better candidate got that job, and you may not feel so, but the boss says, I appreciate that, and I do value your work. I chose this other person for some specific reasons about a capability, a skill set, an experience that they had that I thought would make them more conducive. But I hope you will not think that doesn't mean I don't appreciate your contributions, and I certainly am very supportive of your advancement in the company. That's the way you deal with somebody rather than being dismissive and say, hey, I made my decision. I get the hell out of here. That's cold. It's uncaring. It's not what people are hoping from good leadership. So, and be humble enough as a leader that guess what? You don't know it all. And sometimes you make mistakes and sometimes you make decisions based on incomplete information. And then you have to acknowledge that and say, like, I'll try to do better the next time. I've learned something here today myself. I've learned that I made that decision spontaneously without fully thinking about how that might impact on you and others. And I'm sorry for that. And I'll do better in the future. That's fine. It doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you look like a bad leader. Contrary, I think it makes you look like a good leader.
Mhm. I love that. And a lot of times we forget that how implication of these psychological aspects and properly managing people and behavioral aspects can make a tremendous shift. But obviously, psychological aspects of it are a very important part of the negotiation, specifically in times when things escalate so quickly. And we've seen this evident in so much where people are really today overwhelmed, stressed out. It's a lot of things going on simultaneously. and a lot of uncertainty. So it's so easy to escalate there. What would you recommend to really help the de-escalating situation when not only trying to do intervention, crisis management, for example, but also trying to negotiate and wanted to turn outcomes around to minimize those risks and possible, obviously, deadly incidents?
Well, I think for managers or other who are attempting to do what you suggest, the number one approach is self-control. I mean, how can you expect to influence or control others if you can't control your own emotion, if you lose your cool and demonstrate your anger and frustration? And you should be modeling the behavior that you would like to see in response from your employees. And you're most likely to get the behavior you want when you treat people in kind. I mean, all of these things that uh, people that are teaching communication teach, they're very common and similar in some ways, but not everybody does it, and not everybody listens. We all think that we have all the answers and we know how to deal with every problem. In reality, we don't. And you should be, as an individual running an organization or a section of an organization, you should be smart enough to know that I want to leverage the skill set of my entire team. I've got a talented group of people here. And not only do I want their input, but I need to encourage it because I'm not going to be successful. I'm not going to put the weight of the world on my shoulders and my single way of analyzing a situation. I want to leverage this very talented group I have. Now, at the end of the day, I may have to make the decision, but I want to hear what they have to say. I want their ideas. I want to create an atmosphere where they are encouraged and feel comfortable telling me things that maybe I don't want to hear or things that I need to hear. Because if not, then you're surrounded by yes men, as they say, and that it serves the organization in a very poor way. You want people, you don't want somebody to argue for the sake of argument, but if somebody has a really important point to make that is maybe against the mainstream idea, I want them to feel comfortable sharing it and tell them, I appreciate, I'm sure that uh, was something you thought about before you wanted to bring that to our attention, but I'm glad you did because that's what I like. I like those different ideas and ideas that make me think and justify the course of action that I'm going to pursue or that I've recommended. And you should do that in a public way so that others in that group hear you as the leader say, I want this kind of input. I don't reject it. The leaders that, I mean, when I was in the FBI at a certain point in time, we had this, I won't name names, but we had this terrible, terrible leader. And he was a real little dictator. And he'd walk around the office and people literally avoided him when they saw him coming because most interactions were not going to be positive. He would criticize the way you were dressed or, anything about you that he didn't like. It was like a master class in how not to be a boss. And yet, and he created a very toxic atmosphere. Um, and it's usually because he's an insecure person that is trying to make themselves look knowledgeable or tough or all-knowing, and it almost always backfires. And then you get isolated. Then people that can share pathways to success with you don't do so because they're not confident that they'll have their head bitten off when they bring up an idea, or they end up even worse becoming fawning and flattering. Oh, boss, you always have the best ideas, and they stroke the ego of the leader, and that's, I mean, I don't know any good leader that wants that kind of response from his employees.
Hmm. Excellent points. And again, a great reminder that, first of all, everything starts with us, right? And then how we show up, but then also how others are showing up and what do we mirror or mimic, because leaders set the stage. And right now we have plenty of opportunities to set the stage right, how we lead or what we also accept and tolerate, and also in which direction we're going with times of uncertainties and when times when so many things are shifting. I'm curious if you don't mind sharing how this, for example, translates in an experience that you had with FBI. Specifically, I'm curious about that Waco TV series you mentioned earlier, because you had a significant role, and a lot of not only documentaries but also films are being produced. And I would like to, if you don't mind sharing, how accurately that is being portraying you, but also what did you learn as a result of that experience that changed how you,
Well,
your team?
yeah, obviously we learned a great deal, but you mentioned the key word there is team, and that's where unfortunately Hollywood gets it a little bit wrong. Like if you watch the Waco series on Paramount and then the subsequent one on Showtime, it basically shows an actor playing me as a negotiator with one person helping me. Well, in reality, there's a team of people, 5 or 6 or 7 negotiators working together because we want to leverage their combined experiences and knowledge and skill, and we want you know we want that team synergy that is going to help us find the best pathway for negotiating with a very challenging adversary. I always tell the story during the real Waco incident. There was a time where I'd gathered my team and I was soliciting input about where we were at that time and how people saw it, and did anyone have any suggestions. And there happened to be a brand new FBI negotiator there, someone normally not experienced enough to be brought to a big case like that, but who was assigned geographically, so they were close by, so they were part of the team. This person was, and as we were floating ideas around the team, this agent who had far less experience than anybody at the table came up with an absolutely brilliant idea for a strategy approach. Absolutely brilliant. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. And it was so brilliant that I jokingly said, I was just going to say that. Of course, everybody laughed because they knew I wasn't, but I've always remembered that story because I took some pride in helping create an atmosphere in a tense situation where this young person felt confident to speak up and offer a suggestion in front of some of the FBI's most senior, grizzled old negotiators with hundreds of years of experience, and yet it was a very determinative suggestion, and that's what teamwork is all about. The leader has to foster that atmosphere that's positive. You have to become a mentor. And when you have a young up and coming person, they may approach you and seek guidance, and that's a great sign that they want to be better and learn and grow. But maybe they're too shy to do so, but you see in them some great potential. Offer them guidance and assistance. If they have an opportunity and you've given them a chance to do some things, if they don't at first perform the task to the level that you would like, then you pull them aside quietly, one on one, and say, I really appreciate how you really jumped on this project, but here's some things that I think you should think about the next time you take this on that might make it, easier to avoid the pitfalls that you ran into. That's mentoring. And anybody who is serious about their career and serious about the organization they work for, you should darn well want to leave the place better than when you arrived. You should want to help set up good leaders to follow in your footsteps. And if you're not that way, maybe you need to question, why are you in leadership to begin with? Nobody expects you to do everything all on your own, but what they expect you to be is a good leader of individuals. And next thing you know, the team is like a crew team in the Olympics. Everybody's oars are hitting the water at the same time. I just saw that movie not long ago, The Boys in the Boat, and I had read the book a few years ago, and about before the Munich Olympics back in Hitler's time. This team from Washington, University of Washington, out in the West Coast, they weren't Ivy League rowers, but they put this team of young men together, some of them from very poor backgrounds, but they melded them into this perfect rowing machine that defeated everyone and eventually won the gold medal at the Olympics. It's a beautiful story of how one can become a team and to work together for a common goal. And if you think about it, it's a metaphor for the larger human species. We succeed not in conflict, but when we're working together, when we identify a goal that's important to us and we work in harmony to try to achieve that goal, expand our sales or, develop a new product. I mean, it could be anything, but we're doing it, in an organized, dedicated fashion. And we're publicly rewarding those people in the team who've made a special contribution. The government, when I was in the FBI, and I got quite a few of them, if you work something really big, they would say, we're going to give you an incentive award. It'd be like $500 or something like that. Really almost laughable. And based on someone's misguided notion that people work harder for, here you are spending 5 months on a case and you're away from your family, and $500 is the reason you did it. It's ridiculous. But when a big boss pulls you aside or in a public setting recognizes you and says, Izabela worked on this case tirelessly for 5 months. She brought it to fruition, successful prosecution, outstanding work. She's an incredible agent. I want to recognize her today. What is the value of that? It's enormous. It's enormous. And not only does it give you the recognition you're due, but it encourages you to do more and more and more. Because we all like that feeling of being recognized for being successful. We want to be successful again and again.
I love again how you were able to explain that and simplify in a way that not only resonates for me, I'm sure for everybody watching and listening, but also paves the path forward and some great actionable steps here, Gary. So thank you for sharing that experience. And right now, obviously, when we look at, I'm curious, I mean, I really want to know, what do you see is the missing the most right now during this current time that we're in from the leaders? What types of traits that you see they're glaring missing that are setting us up not for success if we don't fill these gaps and build skill sets and capacity to handle leadership domains as we're seeing today?
Well, I think you see the biggest problems in the political arena right now because we've become tribes. We've become, you know, we become I win, you lose, you win, I lose, instead of looking towards a win-win solution. When I hear politicians devote all their time and energy to attacking their opponent, to denigrating their opponent and it's very often in inaccurate and wildly speculative ways. I don't want to hear that personally from a candidate. I want to hear, what are you going to do for our country? What is your agenda? I don't want to talk about this other person and why you think they're not fit. Give me a reason to vote for you. What is it that you want to do to make my life and the life of my family better? Tell me how you're going to build schools and roads and hospitals and how you're going to help me pay for my kids' college and help me put a down payment on a house and afford health insurance and daycare and whatever the myriad of issues are. We will never have a time where there is a shortage of challenging problems to confront. So I want to hear and am motivated by a leader who has ideas. Now, at the end of the day, I may not agree with their solution to all those problems, but I give them big points for having an idea of how to tackle it and a commitment to take on solving this problem. And you take Social Security, Medicare, people have been talking about it my entire lifetime, and it's still going to go insolvent at a certain point because nobody's had the courage to try to fix it. And that's something that I think is just a small example of how maybe politicians aren't listening enough. So drop the negativity. You can certainly sway some people with that approach. There's no question about that. But I think for most thoughtful people, you need to give them something positive to support and to think about. And there's also part of the demonization is when we demonize our opponents, it makes it easier for us, um, to think of them as less than human and to, in a blanket fashion, disregard them. Oh, you're all liberals, or all you're all a bunch of religious gun nuts. Whatever the political attack is, and it comes from all different levels. It's kind of what Hitler did to the Jews, and he condemned them. The names and the characterizations of the Jewish people, and it made it easier for the subsequent Holocaust to happen. And that's a poor way, I think, for any politician to function. Show me the stuff you want to do for me. The problem is today we are inundated with information. When I was a young man, you turned on the news at 6:30 and you had NBC, CBS, and ABC, I guess, NBC, CBS, and ABC. And that was it. And then you didn't get any more news until the paper came out the next morning. That was it. Now we have this endless 24-hour cycle, this loop. And to fill that void on the airways, they have to come up with material. And oftentimes that material is very subjective. It's very inflammatory because they've learned that these things bring in more viewership, more advertising dollars. And it's artificially created a real chasm between us in this country. We're blue. What are you? The blue flag, the red flag. And if you're over there, then I hate you. And I'm over here. And you hate me. And believe it or not, while we've always had political divisions, at my age, this is something I didn't see as a younger man. Whatever your friendships were, they might very well have very different political beliefs, but you found a way that didn't really serve as an impediment to normal relations, social engagement, recreational sharing of time, and genuine friendships. Now it does. It absolutely is an impediment to those things. And as a society, I think that's not good for us. And so we're letting some people, particularly in the news media, at one extreme or the other, who are benefiting financially from stirring this pot and fomenting anger. And I think we can all push back from that, and we should. And I think that would make for a more collegial world. I mean, life's got enough problems as it is. We don't need to create unnecessary problems. I do believe that if most people, the vast majority of people, share a lot of common ideas, regardless of your party affiliation. If you sat down at a table, say, let's talk about making our schools better, or let's talk about, what we might do to make healthcare more efficient. I think reasonable people can come up with reasonable solutions. It may require a little bit of compromise, a little bit of give and take, but I think we can generally work together to advance our mutual interest. But there are so many impediments to that today that I think it's really sad and unfortunate. And I hate to see it. I'm not sure how long we're going to have to endure with it, but I hope people turn the corner on this and see that engaging in a thoughtful way, listening to others, respecting their point of view, even if you disagree with it, is the right way to proceed in life. If somebody is, very controversial issues is gun safety or gun control, and people feel very adamant, no, zero, you can't do anything. And other people say, I want to take all your guns away. Well, there's probably a lot of space in there to do something that might be helpful, that might not infringe on a Second Amendment. But that conversation is just about impossible because of the strong emotions surrounding that issue. Abortion's another one. These are wedge issues that have really created cognitive dissonance in our society, and I hate to see it. So far afield from a business communication perspective, but it does bring up the point in your workplace. You should try hard not to let this stuff seep into the workplace. It's toxic. We're here we work for this company. This is what we're trying to accomplish. And I respect everybody's right to believe whatever they want and to practice whatever political allegiance they want. But let's leave that outside the workplace. This is not the place for it. If you want to do that socially with your friends, that's fine. But here we don't get into that.
Excellent. And you're spot on. We can't separate that as we used to be able, because even though maybe you and I are not bringing that to the table, others are, or people just simply cannot shut that. It's a lot of that blurred line and boundaries are completely being shifted as well. And right now it feels like everything is in this ether of all of these issues that are creating so much problems for people truly to feel more peaceful and less stressed out and less worried. And as a result, as we know, escalation, lack of emotional intelligence, emotional capacity, and controlling emotions then gets the worst out of the people. And we see an unprecedented level of violence at work, at home, and in community. But seen on the positive side, I love, again, your advice and approach and what people need to invest in. And I'm curious if you don't mind sharing a little bit about also tangible steps forward. Obviously, that negotiation, that listening, that communication, all those basic stuff, win-win, looking best interest as a whole versus self-preserving interest that we cannot at all obviously preserve specifically in volatile times like this. So with that in mind, what would you say would be the one, if they could do one thing to make improvement and path forward, specifically as we're sort of seeing how it's this year going on unfold, what would you suggest for everyone to at least consider and take to the heart in terms of their own leadership style and their own way how they show up for others?
As you engage with others, again, model the behavior or the approach that you in turn would like to see aimed at you. And, of all the attributes of a good negotiator, genuine, sincere, empathic, I could list a long list of attributes that we commonly would attribute to a good negotiator. You know what the number one attribute in my mind is? It's likability.
Wow.
It's just plain old, non-fancy likability, being a likable person, liking people, finding the good in everyone. And there is good in almost everyone. Believe me, I have interacted with some pretty despicable people in my career. But even a David Koresh had some aspects of his personality that were likable, despite the tragedy in that situation. But that's what you want to be as a person. You want to be likable. I'm not here to argue. I'm not here to ruffle feathers. I hope we can work together. And the other thing is, when we're trying to get something done or we're trying to close a business deal, don't come across as desperate and this is the end of the world if you don't get this deal. It's not. People would ask me, were you nervous when you went into a negotiation? And I said, never. And they said, well, why not? And I said, well, I knew I was going to give it my best. I knew I was going to sincerely and genuinely do everything within my power to help this person out of this situation, to keep them from harming themselves or someone else. But at the end of the day, I don't control them. And there may be factors, motivations in their behavior of which I don't know or cannot control. And that's okay. I can't control everything. I'm not in charge of the world. I can't make everybody do what I want. I can't make a customer accept our contract offer because there may be other factors. There may be other people in the company that have already made a decision. Maybe they're just coming to deal with us to be able to say they checked with another company. All you can do is present your best foot forward, be confident, and then live with the consequences. And I think if you think that way, you come across as more confident and you come across as a more desirable partner to work with. And people see that. And it's that more than anything specific you say or the numbers you forward in your deal making. I think people want to work with people they like and respect and have a good feeling about. You know, how many times have you met someone and for the first time and you come away from that and you're talking to another friend and they said, "Well, how was the function last night?" You said, "Yes, and I met the most interesting person." "Oh yeah, what was interesting about him?" "Well, they had these wonderful experiences and I liked the way they shared it. And when I was telling them about things I did, they seemed so focused and so intent on understanding what I had been through and they made I felt really good talking to them." Don't we all want to be there? That's the impression we want to leave on people. Now, some of us have to work at it harder than others. There are people who are so naturally empathic and genuine, and it's wonderful when you meet people like that. But most of us can really improve our approach to life and the way we engage with people if we put the effort into it. You know, if you're having a bad day, don't share it with everybody. Get through it and try to focus on how other people feel and what they're going through and recognizing that. Um, I don't know, I'm meandering a little bit here, but I think it is sort of a whole life approach, whether we're talking about business or social engagement or marital relationships, dating, whatever it might be. Um, I think a good way to be is to be a likable, engaging person. Um, and that way people want to be around you and they want to work for you and they want to please you. And your employees want to make you proud of them, because they know you're going to recognize their effort. You're going to reward them. You're going to mentor them. When they get a job offer from another company, you're not going to be all upset. You're going to be happy for them because they've now taken the next step in their life journey, and they'll pass on that same value to someone that comes behind them. It's paying it forward, as they say.
I love that. And I love that share because it's so relatable and so easy. And when we're self-aware and when we know where to pay attention and on what, and put energy and effort. And I love to, again, reflect in a closing here, how much of that personal reflection and things you invested in your personal growth as well, obviously able to be this tremendous world-known negotiator and dealt with some of the most complex issues of the past. Obviously, you led with your legacy and you already established tremendous legacy, but I'm curious now, with everything that is going on, what would you want to be your legacy in this chapter of your life and also be known for?
That's a good question. I think we already touched on it. I think giving back, sharing. Um, Times are different now than when I was a younger man pursuing. But on the other hand, there are some universal truths and moral lessons as valid today as they've ever been. And I think I try to be a mentor. Increasingly, I recognize the importance of that and taking the time. Occasionally I get a request from a high school class to talk to them on Zoom. Well, it's not a corporate client paying me a lot of money, but I always do it. Why not? I have the time. If this, high school class in the middle of the country has taken the time to ask me to talk to them about what I used to do, then I'm happy to do it. And maybe I can say something that will inspire or encourage one of them to pursue their dreams. I wanted to be an FBI agent when I was a young kid. And so when does that process start? Well, it starts from the beginning of life, that we are encouraged and nurtured by our parents and our friends and our community. But that never ends. And I think if you try to, and this is what I try to do now, is devote more and more of my time, not so much to giving corporate speeches as I have in the past and working on TV projects, but finding venues in which I can pass on those experiences.
Thank you for listening to Legacy Leader Show. If you enjoyed the content and had a positive experience, then please leave us a positive rating. In addition, leave us a positive review whenever you are listening on whatever platform there might be. Make sure your friends and family also know about the benefit and value that we provide and what we have to offer. Cheers.